Okay, so it's 7:01. We're recording this. People are still coming in. We are, I'll just kind of give people some kind of general Zoom information. If you've been lucky enough not to have been in lots of Zoom meetings for the last few years, it's just easier if people mute themselves when they're not talking. It's easier for everyone to hear. And when you do, we're going to be asking people to ask questions. And if you could raise your hand with the Zoom hand. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, there's a menu and it says raise your hand. If you could raise the Zoom hand and not your physical hand, because with 36 people, I can't see everyone on my screen. And so I want to make sure that if you have a question, your hand is raised and I can see the Zoom hand on the side at the little yellow hand. So that's all I have for that. And so we're going to get started now. Oh, more people are coming in. More people. And so we're at 38 people now. We'll give it one more minute. So Ingrid, you had a question. I'd like to wait to answer the questions after, but while we're waiting for people to come in, if you have something
Sure.
No.
Yeah, no, thanks, Neil. I'd love to know this. There was money promised by the town for Water District 5 residents. I think, I can't recall exactly, it was something like 10 years worth of expense money that would offset our water bills.
I mean, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But yeah, so why don't we start the meeting here, the question thing. And so thank you for coming, everyone. Some of you know me, some of you don't. My name is Neil Battez. I'm the town supervisor. We've been waiting to have this meeting until we were far enough along so that we'd be able to give you an accurate timeline for the next few phases of the project. In the beginning, we had some supply chain issues with metal pipes in Ukraine, and we weren't really sure, but we're far enough along now that the main pipes are in, and we have a really good timeline for the next few steps, those are the steps that really are important that we engage the public with, and we make sure that any questions or issues or concerns that you have are addressed. And so the goal here tonight is to try to answer any of those questions that you have. If we cannot answer them tonight, we will find the answers and we will email them out to everyone so everyone is aware of them. I think we have email addresses and contact information for many of the people in the district, but not everyone. We've sent out multiple letters to everyone in the district. Most people have replied, some have not. If you know of anyone who hasn't replied, please encourage them to reach out to us and give us their contact information so we can contact them. I think Otto and Gary are going to be addressing some of this later on. So I just wanted to start with a really quick background, and then I'm going to introduce you to people who know a lot more about this than I do, so they can give you some progress updates and then some logistics. But before I do that, I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of the background in case there are some people that are new to this project. So right now, the village and town water district users get their water from several reservoirs up on Mountain Rest Road and the Ashokan Reservoir via the Catskill Aqueduct, with about half of it coming from each over the course of a year. And however, unless it rains every few days, the reservoirs only supply about 3 days worth of water continuously. So this project is really to create a backup water supply for the town and village for planned and emergency shutdowns for the Catskill Aqueduct. That's why the DEP is paying about $10 million to build this project. And why the village has agreed to take on much of the maintenance going forward. So this is very different than a typical water district where the people in the district have to pay for everything, and then the ongoing costs when a pipe breaks and things like that. So that's kind of the background. We'll get into more of the details, but I just wanted to introduce you to Gary and Otto, who some of you have already met, but they're going to go over progress to date, construction projections, and then maybe to the district logistics. And so with that, Gary Aber, who is the regional construction services leader for Labella Associates, and Otto Miranda, who is the senior construction inspector for Labella Associates. I'd like to hand it over to them. So Gary and Otto.
Good evening, everybody. Good to meet you, at least at a distance. We have met some of you in the field. Again, Neil just said, my name is Gary Aber. I was with Chazen Engineering for 46 years before we merged and became part of the Labella Associates larger family officially as of this past January 1st. So we've been tasked by the town with being the construction managers for the contracts that were let to put the actual facilities in place to provide this district to you guys. And in so doing, we have been in the field up until this point, trying to foster the main line, the trunk lines, and so on of this, and get it to a point where we can start to service each and every one of you. So as the work progresses, and Otto's going to give you a detailed description of where the construction is at this point, and then I'll just recap a little bit when he's done. So Otto, you want to just bring everybody up to speed on where we're at this point?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Again, my name's Otto Miranda, the Senior Construction Inspector from Labella for the Town Water District number 5 project. I've had the pleasure to meet some of you, and would like to say I appreciate your cooperation and understanding as the construction has moved forward with digging down the middle of the roads and everything. And I'd like to just give you a little brief description of the work that has been completed so far and what will be taking place as the project moves forward. At this time, we've installed all of the 6-inch and 8-inch ductile iron supply piping down all of the roads, which includes Plains Road, Locust, Schwangunk, Woodland, and Cedar Lane. We've also completed all of the curb valves and curb boxes for all of the residences. With all of that work completed, we were able to install a binder course of blacktop paving over the trenches and the roads, thus eliminating the stones and the dust that was starting to accumulate and get kind of bad as the warmer weather has approached. As we move forward, we've started to bring the water piping from the curb valves to some of the homes. At this point right now, we've completed 8 of those. At this time, with what the first step in this is for us to bring the water service from the curb box into your residence, and at a later date, the plumber will come and make the connections that are needed to supply you with the water. That will not take place until everything has been approved by the Ulster County Department of Health, and we have a water supply from the well house, which is currently under construction. Butler Construction has started that work, and we're hoping to, if on schedule, sometime in the later fall. Some of you may have already gotten a correspondence by flyer from Merritt Construction, who is the contractor on site, with project manager Art Francis' telephone number as well as my contact. If you have received this, please reach out to Art to schedule a preliminary inspection of your property and also set a date for the install. I will be accompanying Art on these appointments. We have started this part of the project at the village town line near Locust Lane, and moving towards, we've done a couple on Schwangunk, and Art has handed out the flyers on Woodland. So we're about in there. We can accommodate what's good for you, your time, when it works for you. We don't have to do this in a specific order. We can jump around and work for what works best for you. Let's see. Sorry. One thing with this project that's changed a bit is Merit Construction has been able to do a directional drill instead of a open trench, which was the original design for this. So the impact on your property is much less intrusive than if we were to have to trench all the way from the road to the house. What's involved with that is basically we have to excavate again where the curb box is, which is at the road edge, and then either right up against your foundation or in that close proximity to it. So it's usually just two holes that have to be dug on your property. And after that is completed, they've been putting topsoil back on there and restoring your lawn or any plants or vegetation that was disturbed to at least to restore it to as good, if not better than what it was before. Just to let you know again that the construction has started for the new well house on the town property at Brickner Lane. I did mention that we're anticipating a completion sometime in the late fall. Once all the construction is completed, all the roads in the water district will be paved in an entirety after that work is completed. I guess in conclusion, if you have any construction related questions, I would be more than happy to try to answer them for you. My contacts are on the town's website. And I guess I just wanted to thank you again for your cooperation. It's been a pleasure meeting some of you, and I look forward to meeting all of you.
I just want to mention that Otto said there that they will jump around with these services. So the contractor is willing to move his equipment around and make it available or make themselves available at your schedule. So this is not something where they're going by house number and you need to be available on a certain day or something. They're very cognizant of the fact that people have their own lives. They have doctor's appointments. They have other visitations. They're going to be out of the house during the summer here. I'm sure some of you might be away for a period of time. So if you can give Art an indication of when you would be available, you don't have to tell him when you're not available, but just give him an indication of when you would be available or speak with Otto, and they will get you on the schedule and try to work with that as best as possible. The intent here is that they would get all the way from the street to the foundation and then penetrate the foundation, bring the pipe in and align it for the hookup at a later date. So depending on whatever the weather is in the fall here, it would be down to an operation where the licensed plumber would come in for the contractor, and whether it's raining, snowing, sleeting, hailing, whatever, he can just get into the basement, make that transition and make that hookup. And it wouldn't be something where they left the pipe outside and now we're worried about it's too cold or it's freezing or something else. And then trying to tell somebody that there's another delay for any other reason, okay? With the well house, we have one additional well to be drilled. There is a mechanical backup for the primary well that will be drilled right next to the well house, so that during a time of service or maintenance, the primary well of the two would always be functional. And then the secondary well, which is further away from the well house, would be the backup, but that's not the one that has the most draw from it. So the primary one is the one that has the mechanical backup to it. So that, as Otto said, that process has started, and you'll see that building coming out of the ground shortly as they progress that fairly quickly. So I think that's everything from a construction standpoint. And I guess, Neil, we'll turn it back over to you for more of district logistics.
Sure. So, I mean, I think everyone wants to know, well, what's it gonna cost, right? And so everyone's interested in rates. You know, we can't give you a final answer right now, but I can tell you what, you know, people pay in other town districts and why we're expecting that your rates are gonna be significantly less than that. And that's because this was designed as a backup supply for the village. So in the other town districts, we charge 1/10 of 1 cent per gallon. So 10 gallons of water costs a penny. The average person uses 80 to 100 gallons a day. So that's less than $1 a day per person, right? But this is a backup supply for the village. So they've agreed to cover any of the costs related with extraordinary maintenance, including, for example, repair and replacement of village specific and major components of the town water system or components which do not require regular attention. So, so as well as covering the cost of repairs and replacement of any water lines owned by the town and located within the district. That's different than a normal district. So if like a water main breaks, you know, that's a capital cost, and then, you know, that has to be paid for by everyone in the district. This is not like that. So the town, and basically that means the water district users are only responsible for performing ordinary and regular operations of the district. That's on a day-to-day basis. That includes, like, you know, chemicals, daily monitoring of the wells, the regulatory paperwork, reporting requirements, utility costs, internal, external lighting, things like that. Very, very narrow cost. And when this was all put together as part of the original DEP project, Dave Clauser, who was the town engineer, estimated that it would cost about 50 cents for every 1,000 gallons for those costs. So about 5 cents for every 100 gallons versus $1 for 100 gallons, which is what we charge the other one. So about 5% of what the other districts pay. I mean, those were put together a few years ago, you know, so we're working on kind of upgrading those, but we do think that the costs are not going to be nearly as much as, you know, what other people in town are paying. But, you know, the other thing to remember is that, you know, you're not paying for electricity for your pump. You don't have to have a filtration system. The DOH suggests that if you have a well, that you test your well for E. coli every year, and then every 3 to 5 years for lead, nitrate, arsenic, sodium. These are all going to be done much more frequently for this. And then when the power goes out, you still have water because there's a backup generator and the pumps and everything else. As far as you know, Ingrid's question about free water, at one point when we were negotiating with one of the residents who was suing the town to stop this district from happening, we made an offer of 25 years of free water to everyone in the district if they dropped the lawsuit. They didn't drop the lawsuit, so that offer went away, and that money was actually used to fight the lawsuits, which we won, which is why we're here today. We have still budgeted, and it depends on how the construction goes. If there's extra money in the end, we have a couple $100,000 to put towards paying the costs of water for the first 2 years, maybe 3 years, depending on how long it lasts. The idea is that we have a contract with the village where the rate that they're paying for the backup water supply has been set at that 50 cents per 1,000 gallons for the first 2 years while we figure out how much things cost. And we didn't want the residents to have, for us to come up with a rate before we knew what the final numbers were. So we've put some money in there to kind of keep the rates free if possible for the first few years while we straighten everything out. And then if we know the final cost, we'll be renegotiating with the village for what they pay for the backup water supply, which will lower your rates because you're not going to be paying for anything that the village uses, you know, maintenance, pumps, or anything. We also have the system's going to be brand new, so there shouldn't be a lot of capital costs. We have 5-year warranties on all of the equipment, so nothing should be breaking or cost any money for the first 5 years. And as part of this project, we've bought backup equipment like well pumps and everything else. So when things do break in a couple of years, we have it. So we have a lot of like kind of built-in extras to kind of keep the costs down And so no one's going to be hit with any big bills. That's kind of the hope here. But we're working on what the final costs are. But we do think they're going to be pretty reasonable. And so if anyone else has any questions, like I said, we may not be able to answer them, but anything we can't answer, we will get back to you and do our best. So there's a question with an iPad.
You see it.
Yes. You mentioned several reservoirs earlier that supply about 3 days worth of water. What reservoirs will we be using from the Catskill Mountain?
The Ashokan Reservoir. Well, no, this is not all of the water that everyone in district uses is only water that's coming from Plains Road. So the water that you're getting is you're not connected. No water from the village comes into Plains Road. The only water that you get is coming out of the wells on Plains Road.
So we're not getting any Catskill water.
No, this district is not connected to the larger. No water goes into the district. Water only goes out of the district when there are planned and emergency shutdowns of the aqueduct.
So we won't be getting Catskill water at all.
No, should not be.
That's too bad.
Don't know.
Okay.
Ingrid.
Thanks. So my next question, Neil, is about the route of the piping into the houses. At one time, about, I don't know, a year or something ago, there were parties that came in, like kind of mapped out a route into, I mean, in my case, it was to my basement. But I think there might be a more direct route for the pipe to go into my basement rather than the route that was initially planned. So when I, contact and make an appointment, is that something that they might discuss rerouting?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Ingrid. Otto's intent when he said that was that he would visit you along with Art Francis. They would look at the changes that they have decided to make, that they don't need to trench all the way in, but they can directional drill and be a lot less intrusive to the surface treatments and so on. But two, to decide, because the directional drill is just that, it's directional. So as they move along, there's kind of a bow plane on the front of that rod that as they spin the rod, they can push that rod to the left or right. They can push that rod deeper if they're coming too shallow. So they can decide to be equidistant between two trees instead of close to a tree. Rather than being a straight line, that rod bends. So that's the whole intent of trying to have that initial visit and seeing to it what may have changed, or maybe in some cases, people weren't the owner at the time and somebody said, okay, it's going to go from here to here. And now we come out and we meet with you and you say, well, is there any possibility that we can change that? Yes, there is. Okay.
Is the easiest thing to have a straight line rather than like bends and turns? Is that a thing that is desirable, to just go straight?
It doesn't much matter. It's going to be locatable or traceable anyway. So after it's in, if the village was coming out and they needed to find it, or you needed to find it, it's going to be traceable. So it doesn't too much matter. I mean, obviously the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And of course the contractor would love that. But by the same token, his pricing was such that there was latitude for changes, and they're more than to do that to satisfy the landowners.
Okay.
Yep.
Gail Friedman.
Hi, thanks. I had several questions. When you say later fall, can you clarify that a little bit more? Does that mean September, October, November? What's your target date?
It probably at this point is late October, November timeframe. Okay. Until we get a little bit further out of the ground and we see how quickly things are coming together, we'll be able to put the town will put some publication out to get a better detail on that.
Okay, but late October looks like the earliest date of,
I would think so at this point.
okay, thank you. Secondarily, at one point, quite aside from the lawsuits, it was estimated that there was a fund that would provide on average use 5 to 6 years, which was quite separate from anything else. So it appears that that is gone away. I also have a question on brand new construction of something this massive. A 5-year warranty seems to me at least minimal. And does that include the area from the road into our houses? Should something arise during, in that placement?
No,
Yeah.
no, there is, as Gary and Otto can weigh in on this, but that's not covered ever by a water district. That's on your private property. We don't.
Right, but we have nothing to do with the installation of the work being done. And if there is a problem there, it could be a huge expense. So there's no warranty for that area?
I think you can get maybe insurance for that, but that's not covered. That's never covered by municipalities. The stuff on people's private property. Gary and Otto may know different.
This, the service coming into the houses, in most cases, unless those houses, we do have a few that are quite some distance off the road, but in most cases, that will be one piece of copper or plastic between the water shutoff at the road and the house. Okay, so there will not be joints or unions or connections in that pipe. But typically, a normal water district ends at the water shutoff at your lawn, and that's the limit of the municipal ownership of the district. So the things that would typically be warranty items would be from the water shutoff out to the main, down the main, to the well house, to the wells, and the larger components would be the large pumps and the well heads and the well pumps down the well and so on like that. But by the same token, after this stuff is put in, it will all be tested. It will all be pressure tested. Typically, that gets tested at approximately 2.5 times the operating pressure. And those tests are all something that are documented and required by the health department to be able to make any connections or have anything hooked up. So the chances of something happening between the road and your house are very slim, and you have no moving components between there and your house, which is the big deal with the well house and the pumps and the operation of that piece of the district.
We were told that the estimated cost per month, including average usage and funding a reserve fund, was going to be about $18 a month per house. It sounds like now it might be considerably more than that. Or did I hear that wrong?
The lawsuit probably slowed things down by 5 years. So yeah, it probably is different than that, but I'm not sure where you heard that $18 a month. But like
From multiple of your predecessors in many meetings and in writing.
well, like I said, we're working on the final numbers now. And we'll get them to you once we have them, but it's probably not going to be, I can't say what it's going to be. But, the original estimates were pretty low, but like I said, that was 5 years ago.
Right, but there wasn't anticipated to be a large rise in the costs. I mean, why would there be a big increase in price with time? No, nothing was ever said about the fact that the rates would go up significantly over time.
I know we did spend over $150,000 on lawsuits though.
Most of which was reimbursed to you, but putting that aside for the moment.
Any other questions?
Yes, how much usage are you being permitted for?
The district is estimated to use about 80 gallons a minute. During emergency shutdowns, I think it goes up to 400 gallons a minute, but that's for a very limited amount of time. I think, if I remember, it's like 6 or 8 weeks. And that probably happens over the next 10 years. They're saying, estimating 6 planned shutdowns of the aqueduct, but they don't know about emergency shutdowns, which is why they're funding this, because what they're really worried about is, if there's an emergency shutdown, then no one in the town water districts or the village would have water. And the New York City DEP, that's why they're paying for this backup system, so that they have the ability to fix the aqueduct.
Okay, I have one final question, if I may. When you originally started, you weren't, not you, because you weren't even in office, but when the original drilling and testing was done on the property before any of us even knew what was going on, the way this all arose was because there was damage to some people's well pumps. There was E. coli introduced into some people's water systems, and there were fixtures that were damaged and essentially destroyed in the house because they got clogged. Presumably, you're going to have to do that same level of testing again, particularly if you're drilling a new well. What happens if those same issues arise because the new water district will not be in place at that point?
Gary, right? I think that's why we're not, they don't test that well until people are hooked up. Is that right, Gary? Or am
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, the system will go online with the primary well and the secondary well, and then that mechanical backup will take place after the system is up and functioning.
Okay, so you won't have to do any additional testing such as you did before prior to the district being in place?
That's not anticipated at this time, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Arlene Birnbaum.
Hi, Neil. Yeah, so I have two questions. One is in terms of the Roars property, I know there was some talk about it becoming a park originally. There was some soccer fields potentially. Do you know anything in terms of the future of Roars property?
We have, I think lots of ideas were like kicked around. As far as I know, there is nothing planned for that at all, other than it's, the well house. Anything that we would need to do, it costs money. And, we have the Field of Dreams right now. We didn't have those soccer fields before. So, we just built 2 new soccer fields up there. I don't see us doing anything anytime soon just because we don't have the money to do anything. I hope that doesn't make people too upset or too happy one way or the other. There's no plans to do anything other than the well house is there. It will be.
But at least in terms of once construction is done, is the property like ours in terms of being able to just walk on it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
It'll be town property. The wells have to be, secure. And of course, we don't want people driving there because we're not building parking lots or anything like that. But it's town property, no different than like the Field of Dreams, and the town owns it and people have access to it. And so when you live near there, you can go for a walk there.
Okay.
Unless the Department of Health says no one's allowed, but I think we just have to secure the areas around the wells and the well house. Is that right, Gary?
Yes, the wells do have security on them. And the only thing we would ask is that during the construction, there's a lot of vehicles in and out of there. So please, if anything, curtail your time to maybe a walk on the weekend or something, and not during the week when the contractors are active.
Hey, I'm only looking once you guys are done. I'm just.
Okay, that's fine too.
And then, so my other question is about paving. I know you guys did put some paving down, as you said, and I know at least on our road, Locust Lane, it's, both sides have really gotten ripped up, not just the side that you guys worked on. I think just the amount of equipment when everything's done, are you paving the entire road?
Yes, the intent of the contract and what was bid in the contract is that when all the work is done, the entire road will receive an overlay. And we've already had conversations with Chris, the highway super, on that, and just how that's going to transpire, whether that should be done this fall or it should be done in the spring. But it is part of the final completion of all the roads. Yes.
Okay, good. That's it. Thanks, Neil.
Carol Cryer?
Carol Cryer, Plains Road resident. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I have two questions, one of which was partially answered by Otto. For those residents of Water District 5 with vacation plans for the summer, what is a specific timeline for the main line to home connection? We live at 150 Plains Road, and our property is only 2 houses north of the intersection with Cedar Lane. So I was wondering if you have a specific timeline based upon positions, just answer it, based upon the, the location of the various houses.
Otto is there. I think there is no specific time, but if people want to, and I'll let Otto or Gary answer this, but I think if they can reach out and they'll work around your timeline. And I think they could do it as soon as, this week. That's my guess, because I think they've already started. But
If they could at least give an estimate of when they think they would be down to that end of Plains Road, that would be somewhat helpful.
I think they're
At this
willing.
point in time, if they could even just give an estimate.
I think they're not going in order. They're willing to go to any house at any time. Is that right?
Okay.
Otto?
Okay.
Well, we're right at this moment, we're just past the southern end of Woodland where we're working on now. I would say that, as far as further down Plains Road and past Cedar Lane, I would think, that's probably 2 to 3 weeks away.
Okay. Okay.
I think maybe what we can do is, even though it's open to residents to try to arrange that, I think maybe what we could do is we could have some updates on the town's website by Kathy. And we could say, we're down near this end, we're moving to the middle, we're moving toward the other end, and give a timeline of that it might be in 2 weeks, we'd be up in that area. And maybe that would help you. But by all means, that there are times that you're not going to be available, and you would schedule around those. Like I said before, we don't need to know when you're not around. That's not something we need to be privy to. But by the same token, if you would just let either Art or Otto know and say, we would much prefer you to be here around this time or this, they'll work with that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. My second question is, we have underground electric, cable, and phone. When should we notify Central Hudson and Spectrum to come to mark their lines?
We'll just tear those all out.
I'm sorry?
I said, we'll just tear those all out. No.
I don't think so. I would be very happy if you do such a thing.
I'm sorry. I just had to do that. The contractor does have an obligation to have those things marked out. So he can either confirm when your appointment is, and then you could notify Central Hudson, or he may be doing that himself. And I'm not sure, Otto, if you know that at this point or not.
Yes, Merritt Construction has called for all the markouts on the roadways and on the front of the properties, and on certain specific ones where we know that there is underground utilities going to the house. He is also getting some private markouts on those types of properties. Not all of them, because predominantly most of the telephone and electric is overhead, but on the properties where it does travel underground to the homes, we're doing private markouts on those. And I also wanted to say, if you wanted to give me a call at any time, I apologize, I didn't catch your name at 150 Plains Road, but my number's on the website. And if you want to give a call in the next day or two, I'd be more than happy to come and take a few minutes and talk to you and figure out when it was the best time for you, for us to come and install the pipe at your home.
Okay, the name is Cryer at 150 Plains Road. I'm finished with my questions. However, my husband has a few questions for you as well.
Thank you. I've spoken to you, Otto, a couple of times on the road, and I appreciate the information. Thank you very much. So in the case of Central Hudson, because we had to have some work done on our main line, and they were very unresponsive to get to us. And so do we own that, getting them, if we need them to identify the lines on the property, or with the help of the contractor?
No,
Contractor is performing private markouts also,
Okay,
besides what Central Hudson either does or doesn't provide.
okay, all right. Okay. The other question I had is, we have a current holding tank on our well system, and that, I believe, is not going to be needed anymore.
that is correct.
Okay, and also we have an ultraviolet system. Is that going to be of any benefit to us in the future?
There would be no need for that also.
Okay, all right, that's my 3 questions. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and please reach out to me and give me a call and I'll come down and we'll figure out a good date for you.
Okay, thanks.
That's it, thank you.
Are you all set? Kate Capolino, please.
I can assure you I am not Kat Capolino, but my name is Dave Richardson. We're on Plains Road as well. Just a couple of questions about the pumping system. Is it going to be chlorinated, the new water?
Yes.
Yes.
Department of Health, I'll let Gary answer, but yes, the Department of Health requires it.
Okay.
But we are also, part of the budget is we will put in filters, right? Is that right, Gary?
Carbon
Yes.
filter, yes.
Yes. And I think
Yeah,
that's-
the restraints on a municipal system are different than the restraints on a house. So the chlorination and the monitoring is much more stringent to be able to provide water to a municipal service. So the onus is on the village of maintaining this, and they're in the process of coordinating the electronics that will be able to add that to their current system of what they're doing in the village already, but it becomes daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly testing, sampling that they need to be able to provide to the health department to continue to operate a municipal system.
And will there be fluoride added to the water as a public water supply? No, okay.
No.
And then,
But if
and then-
people want filters, so if and Gary, what was the type of filter? I forget what it is, but
It's a carbon filter.
carbon filter. So if people want carbon filters, if they don't want the chlorine, that's part of this project as well. If people want that, they can be paid. They'll be paid for as this part of this as well at no cost to the homeowners.
and then in terms of testing, so we're in an area that is both has a cemetery near it as well as former orchards. So will there be testing for arsenic, and if so, which forms?
I can find that out. When they did the initial studies, this water supply is not connected to the cemetery. There's a lot of clay in between. I can send you that report too if you want, Dave. And I can also get you the arsenic forms that they're testing.
Thanks. We did have, we found slightly higher arsenic in our groundwater. So for our drinking water, we have a reverse osmosis, but I don't know if that'll be necessary if you're testing regularly and comparing to EPA standards. All right, so my last quick question is, what's the carbon footprint of the well housing, and is there any local renewable resources for powering the well housing or the well?
Well, we are looking at solar on the landfill for the town right now. That's kind of in the middle of it. We haven't ruled out solar. It's not part of this project, but there could always be some solar panels placed, either on the roof of the well house or maybe on the property somewhere. But we would want to make sure we put them. Right now we can't put solar panels anywhere on town property because we don't have a solar law in place yet, and so they're basically not allowed, like big solar projects. The town's working on a solar law, so we can do it on the landfill and allow it in other places, but landfills are different because they're automatically allowed by the DEC. It's a type 2 we can't put them anywhere else on town property because we haven't worked out all the details, how, tree barriers and how visible they are from the roads and stuff like that. So right now, there's no solar plans, but we would like to add solar to bring down costs in the future.
Yeah, that would be awesome. All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Loretta, Russell?
You're on.
Hi, this is William Russell. Loretta, my wife is here as well. We're at 88 Plains Road. First of several questions I have is with the current wells that everybody has that are feeding your homes now. I recall many years ago when this all started, and then there was the litigation, and there were some kind of things thrown in there to try to get the litigation ended, which you spoke about earlier. But at one point, I recall that we were possibly going to be given a choice if we wanted to keep our old wells to be hooked up to outside water faucets, to whether it be to wash the car or water the lawn or whatever. So again, so what if people want to keep their current wells? I know it can't be, it's got to be a separate system, separate from the water line coming in from the road. Who would bear the cost if that were the case? If you did want to keep your well and have it hooked up to designated lines, like for example, to the outside of your house, etc.
The contract that's in place provides for severing connection from the well feed, the individual house well feed, and connecting that into the municipal water feed. So it would sever that connection. It would leave the well and all its appurtenances, whether it be pump or pressure tank or whatever, in place. And that can be something, I think there was, I don't know if anybody's online, but I think that question was asked of Neil, of whether they could speak with the contractor when they're doing the final connection and the cutover to the municipal tie-in, of whether the plumber could actually make the separate connection to tie the well, the individual well and the pressure tank back into an outside faucet. And that is definitely feasible. That is something you would have to negotiate. And I would suggest that even though he's there, it should be more beneficial or economical, but by all means, in this day and age, I would get a second opinion and see that you have the best possible pricing. But when the plumber's there, that could be something that you negotiated, if that's what to do.
So the cost would be borne by the homeowner in that case.
Yes, yeah. The project only eliminates the individual well and makes the primary connection the municipal system, because there can never be any cross connect. No, there's been conversation about whether both could be tied in and somebody could have a valve to go either way or something. And there's never any possibility that a private system can be connected into a public system that could then fail and backfeed into someone else's service.
Right. So related to that, I'm assuming that everybody's current wells would have to be, I believe the term is abandoned. And I believe there's a cost and work related to that. Is that part of this project as well? The abandoning of each well that each homeowner has, where you pull the pipe out of the ground, pull the pump out. Obviously, I think it has to be filled, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens with everybody's current wells?
Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that abandoning the wells was included in the contract that was put in place for this and the funding that was put in place for this.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up with the DEP on that and find out if it's a requirement, and if it's a requirement, if that's part of this project. So we'll get back to you with that one, Bill.
All right. The second question I believe is probably related to the one of the previous persons who referred to their UV systems. I also have a UV system and a water softener. Have very hard water in this location, so obviously everybody well on the road is connected in some way, shape, or form. Of course, Culligan, who is my water softener company, when I mentioned to them a couple of years ago that we're going to be getting this system in here, because I wanted to move the water softener from one side of the wall to the other. And I kind of put a hold on that. And I said, well, I shouldn't need the water softener because we're getting municipal water. I don't know anybody with municipal water that has a water softener. But of course, I'm trying to keep the business. Like, oh no, you definitely want to keep your water softener. We have many customers in Newburgh, et cetera, who have water softeners, UV systems, and I'm kind of like, I don't. It doesn't seem right to me. But anyway, I know with water softeners, the way they're hooked up, that's all part of the plumbing for the plumber who's coming into the home. That if you do have a water softener, a UV system, that would all be disconnected as well when the plumber comes in to make whatever changes and hookups. Or how would that work if you were going to just take your water softener out of service at that point?
The contractor and the plumber would be coming in to sever a connection coming out of the pressure tank and reconnecting that to the new line coming from the municipal. So downstream from the pressure tank, you may have some of those systems in the house, and it may be something you want to keep. It may be something you want to turn off and just sample for a while, and then decide whether you just have a straight pipe and just disconnect those.
Yeah, and I'm under the impression you're not going to need a UV system. You're not going to need a water softener. So, related to that, the fact that I know other people who have very hard water, reason we have water softeners. So I'm assuming that the water that we're going to be getting from the system is either not going to be hard or it's going to be treated. So it's soft. Is that correct? Or how does that, or I assume that's tested, or how do you regulate the hardness of the water coming out of the main system into everybody's homes?
Gary, we can ask, we can look at the original tests, but I don't think the water was considered hard, and it is going to be treated before it comes to anyone's house and tested under DOH rules. So you shouldn't need any of that.
But if you wanted to disconnect your UV and or water softener, that cost will be borne by the homeowner as well.
That is my understanding at this point. Yes, unless Neil finds out something different from Deep.
Well, I'll find that out too, Bill.
Okay. And I did have a brief discussion with Neil earlier, and we're going to be getting bills monthly and not quarterly. That's correct?
Yes, monthly. And these are all new water meters that you can go online and check your usage, and it'll also tell you if these are the new water meters that we've put in the rest of all the town districts. And so you can go on and check your daily usage or your, maybe even hourly usage. It'll tell you if you have a leak, and you'll be billed monthly instead of quarterly.
And is there a guarantee or warranty on the, like I said, where the line comes in from the road to the house, and then any work that the plumber does, is that going to be guaranteed for a specific number of years or a specific amount of time, in case there's any issues?
I think that they have a certain responsibility over, I don't know if it's years, but if there are any problems with construction, they have to make it right if things aren't done the right way. Is that right, Gary?
That's correct.
But no specific, set timetable on that, like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, etc.
We will look at the contract. It's usually a year or two. That is the limit on private work like that.
Okay. All right. And then last but not least, the carbon filter that you mentioned, if you're interested in getting that installed, that'll be free of charge. Obviously, I know the filters themselves have to be turned over depending on the amount of water that you use or a certain amount of time. Obviously, that cost going forward would be borne by the homeowner, obviously, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, yeah. So if you can get back with me in regard to the the well and the abandoning of the well, I was always led to believe that you just can't leave a well that's not being used anymore because it's basically a hole in the ground, which could have issues down the line. And I know, in fact, I was talking to Dave Roars a couple of weeks ago about that, about possibly keeping my well for just the outside use. And he suggested that's not a good idea simply because to abandon a well could cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And you want to get that done when they're doing the project. So I initially was under the impression, oh, they're going to be abandoning all the wells. So I'm sure that you have to get the building inspector involved. You probably have to get an engineer's stamp, I would guess, so that it's done properly and that it be inspected either before, during, and or after it's done to make sure it's done properly. So you just don't have a hole in the ground. So that would be something I'd be very interested in.
Yep.
And again, also, if there's any money available, I don't know how many people have UV systems and or water softeners. If they do, it's probably for the same reason that I do. But I know just to get Culligan or a plumber out here to do that, you're talking probably many hundreds of dollars to make whatever changes need to be made with the water lines coming in and out of those systems. So that would be something else if that were hopefully included in whatever the plumber is going to do or could be included. I think that would be helpful probably for many people on this road that have water softeners and related.
We'll follow up and we'll ask the DEP and we'll see if we can get you an answer. And if it's not included, we'll see what we can do to get it included.
And again, I may have asked this specifically, but in the people that are here now that are familiar with this system, there should be absolutely no need for either a UV system or a water system with this new setup that we have coming in, correct?
We'll find out for sure. We have the tests from the original sampling, and we can ask is that water hard or soft or whatever. I don't remember it being hard or soft, but it's been a while since I looked at the numbers. But we'll find that out as well.
I mean, personally, I'd like to get rid of all the less, the better, and I'd like to get rid of all of it. But again, I know there's going to be work and cost involved in doing exactly that. So
yeah, we'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just, before we let you leave and we go on to the next question, we just looked at responsibilities in the contract, and reparations for damage to water service, house piping, and or customer's property resulting from the performance of work under this contract shall be borne by the contractor for a period of 5 years from the date of meter installation. Any leak reported within 5 feet of the meter during this period will be presumed to have been caused by the contractor during the installation process. Contractor is responsible to respond to the customer complaints and leaks and to perform necessary repairs, response within 24 hours of notification. Okay.
Thank you.
Can we get copies of that document you just read from?
That's a page in the contract, so we could excerpt that out and be able to get that to the town's website. Sure.
Liz and Matt Elkin.
Hi, I know you already addressed it a little bit, but I just wanted clarity because I'm not sure I 100% understand. So the new wells that are being drilled, their primary reason for this whole thing happening is so that there's a backup water source for the village, but they will be used for our new water district number 5, 24 hours a day. But they will not be used for anything other than our water district, other than during scheduled shutdowns and emergency shutdowns for the village. Is that correct?
Right now, that is all the permit allows. We
Okay.
cannot take any water out of the district other than during emergency or planned shutdowns. And there are a lot of rules around, so like, legally, we can't do anything but that right now.
But there's a potential to apply for a permit to do more water. If it's producing more gallons per minute or something, you could expand on it.
Yeah, the village has asked about that possibility, but what we've said is we're not willing to do anything until this district is up and running and that we are sure that it's working fine. And then, after some of these planned shutdowns over the next couple of years, they can look at the data and say, okay, well, maybe we can take a little bit out. And the idea is that, if you're taking a little bit out every day, things run smoother than just taking a lot out every once in a while. But right now, none of that's allowed, and that would have to be decided and allowed by the Department of Health before anything can change.
So if that were to happen, would that be a secondary water district that would be added on to the wells? Or would it be?
No, they would be basically like a customer in the district.
It would be a customer, and it would be a certain area of the village? Or would it just be?
Just be putting water in, so it would be adding water. They would be basically like a big user in your district. The benefit of that would be that they would help pay for the daily costs, and they'd be a big user, which would then help lower the costs of everyone else in the district.
Right.
So that would be the idea, that then you have someone who's using a lot of water and would be paying most of the bills.
Right, as long as the wells could support that.
Yeah, but none of that would, be allowed until they looked at the data after several big shutdowns.
Okay.
And Liz, there is a meter pit that was installed that's just prior to the connection between this district and the connection to the village for those emergency events. And there's a large meter in that vault that would be used to make the village a member, if you will, a member of the district as far as what their usage is, so that they are paying what they're receiving, as opposed to not receiving during normal operations when it's just District 5.
Right, okay. And I think Matt had a question too.
Yes, I had a question going back to, there was mention of negotiating with the plumber if we're opting to keep our well and pump in place and tying it into some other line on the house, maybe like an outdoor, gardening line or something. Logistically, that seems challenging. You had mentioned, getting a second opinion, and that's smart thinking, but doing that on site seems like we wouldn't be able to have the plumber come back at that point. Is there a time before the plumber shows up that we're planning everything, scheduling, planning, and then maybe we'd say, hey, we're also considering this. Could you tell us what that cost would be? Also, we're interested in the carbon filtration, kind of getting all our ducks in the row for this important visit of a plumber that's been assigned to us, not chosen by us.
Okay, let me just go back. The meeting that you would want to set up with Art Francis and with Otto would be the initial meeting to talk about when you're available and when it would be conducive for someone to come into your house to make that penetration and prepare it to be ready for when the whole system is ready to go online and it's been tested and approved by the health department for use. So at that initial meeting, that would be the time to, one, yes, I want a carbon filter, and two, I would like to be made aware of what it would cost. And then Merit Construction can notify their licensed plumber that they have X number of houses that would be looking to make that separate connection to an outside faucet or what have you. And that way we would already know, they would already know that you, one, want a carbon filter, what the timing is, and then you would like to know for later what that cost is. And then you could pose that if you wanted to another plumber, and you could say, well, I just want a comparison or something, but at least you would know before the plumber shows up.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't wait with those thoughts and don't wait with that decision until later. But if those are things you're thinking about, have that conversation at the initial meeting so that everybody's aware and they can get their ducks in order too.
All right.
Okay,
That makes sense. Thank you.
sure.
Kevin Caskey.
Yes, good evening. Kevin Caskey, 159 Plains Road. At the beginning of the meeting, you mentioned that multiple letters were sent out. I don't recall getting anything for a long time. Have there been any letters sent out recently?
I don't know about recently, but I thought we sent emails out to people letting them know about this meeting. If we didn't, I apologize. I thought we were doing that. We
Oh,
sent,
so when you said letters, you may have also meant emails.
I know we sent letters. We sent certified letters to every resident.
Isn't that like you mean like two, 3 years ago?
No,
No, there were letters that went out from the supervisor's office just at the onset of the contracting and the project starting, that the town was trying to gather the contact information for each resident and initiate
Okay.
contact.
I should just contact one of you to find out if I'm on your list. That wasn't my main question. My other one is you left out one of our savings when you were, and I'm really surprised because of course, being able to tell us, hey, we were saving money is a good thing. When do the fire hydrants go live so I can call my insurance agent and say, hey, lower my insurance?
They would go live at the same time that the final testing is done, so that the health department would allow connections to be made. So it would be slightly prior to when your hookup is, and we can make sure that that gets on the town website. But one of the indications that you'll notice will be that when the contractor can unbag or uncover the hydrants so that they're available for fire use and they're visible, and that's why they're bagged at this time. So typically,
So
the
the
main
fire
line.
department doesn't get confused. Okay.
Yep.
So it sounds like late fall, I should be able to see a small decrease. in
You'll
homeowners.
probably see that before then. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
and so, Mr. Caskey, if you send your contact information to supervisor@townofnewpaltz.org or assistant@townofnewpaltz.org, we'll make sure that we get your name on the list.
Okay.
Or if you run into Otto or anyone else, we can do that.
I run into Otto on a regular basis. He comments on how many different bicycles I can use in 1 week.
Oh, Mr. Caskey.
Kim, please. Next.
Hi, I'm at 94 Plains. I'm almost directly across from the construction site. I want to first thank you for having this because I've been waiting a very long time to get information, and I think a lot of people have felt a lot of frustration over that. My well was one of the first to be impacted when all of this happened years ago, in secret. So I appreciate any information that we're given. Gary, I want to thank you for saying that you would get information out to the town's webpage, and Otto and I have had a conversation, and Otto, I appreciate all the information you gave me as well. But there is currently no information on that webpage. I think it goes back to 2014 or 2015. The only thing new is Otto's information on there to contact him, which is how I got a hold of him. So, Kathy and I have had some emails back and forth, and she keeps telling me things are going to be there and they're not. So I would just really hope Neil and Kathy, when you speak with her, to please get information out there that you're sharing here, because that's where we need to go if we're not having these informational.
If there's anything specific that you want, we can put it up there.
Well, I just think all of us need to have the same information. So if it's just given to all of us, any information that you have, that's just really, it just helps all of us moving forward. That's just would be great. I mean, the fact that there's so much information from years ago that doesn't even apply anymore. It just, I mean, the history's there. which is I guess nice to see, but we kind of need to know now moving forward. And that's why I appreciate this time that you're giving us all tonight to answer these questions and, to hear our concerns. I just having the information there so we don't have to keep emailing separately or calling Otto. And the other piece too is that Art happened to come yesterday. I got Dave and Kat's mail by mistake, and I walked next door to give it to them, and Art happened to be there. So he asked where I lived, and I said, oh, right next door. So I said, come on over. Lovely man. If no one has met him yet, he was lovely to have in my home and to talk to. But I did not know yet to ask about the carbon filter or all these other questions that are now being raised. So now I have to give him a call and go over that with him. It would be nice to have all of that information before we were asked to contact, these, and I called Otto as well. And, it's the timeline of things. And the more information we have, I think the less frustrated and anxious that we would all feel. And the last thing I want to say is to just express that it's really frustrating and upsetting that one person went forward with a lawsuit and then decided for all of us, or the town decided for all of us, that now we are not offered what we were offered years ago with free water for 10 years, which Gail had brought up. Doesn't seem fair that is the situation moving forward. When I bought this home 23 years ago, I had a well, and I have not had to pay for water, and I've been very happy. I know my other residents have not been, and that's why I did not oppose this water district, because I know a lot of friends who've had a lot of issues with their water and the safety of it. And I want all of us to be a community and work together. But I don't see and Neil, I feel your frustration over that lawsuit. It's very palpable. And I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I don't think that should be reflected on the rest of us who really don't have a say in any of this and would be more than thrilled to have the free water that we were told would happen years ago when this started. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I apologize for not being more forward with the information. We'll try to do a better job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Dale?
A lot of my questions were already answered. I want to thank Bill for some of the questions that he had, because I was curious about having an outside water spigot for watering the lawn or flowers and such. It sounds like it might be more trouble than it's worth if we do have to abandon our wells at some point. That would be a major concern. My other concern would be when they were testing the wells, our wells were basically going dry, being dewatered. Mine was going down 20 feet a day. And if we're using that aquifer, would we even have water to use in our wells for watering our plants? So would it be actually mandatory for us to abandon our wells because there wouldn't be water in them anyway? That's my first sort of question.
Well, so right now, during regular district use, like no more water is coming out than is currently coming out, right? So 80 gallons a minute is what everyone uses right now, right? From your own individual separate wells. And so and this well is much deeper than that. So, during regular times, if you kept your well and you didn't even connect to the district, you'd probably not see any difference, right? There is no difference. However, during shutdowns, when much more water is being taken out and used as a backup supply, then you probably wouldn't have, your well probably would not work. The same thing would happen to your well then that happened during the original tests, which is why the DEP is paying for everyone to get hooked up in the district. The laws are that, the towns can't put wells in and then make your well run dry without fixing the problem by putting in a water district, right? So if you don't connect to the district, you'll probably be fine. But then during the shutdown, if you lost water during the tests, there's a good chance you'll lose water then. And when you're not connected to the district, I don't know what to tell you, right? That's.
I'm not considering not connecting. to-
Oh, yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, well, you might,
Okay.
I'm talking to other people right now.
Okay.
But that would be a concern that I would have if I lived there. We've talked to the cemetery and asked like if they wanted to be connected. And they're like, well, we just, planned shutdowns are going to occur in the fall. We're not really watering in the fall. So they're like, well, we don't know if we want to be connected. So to them, and if like, well, if we can't water the grass for a little while, that's not the end of the world. That's, and you had other questions, sorry, interrupted.
No, you're fine. You're answering more questions. And my assumption, which could be wrong, would be if most of us do, I have very hard water also. So I would think that the water coming from this aquifer perhaps would be hard as well. So that's just kind of an assumption. I don't know if you would have any, you said you're going to get an answer to that. But then the last thing is, I mean, as Kim just said, I do feel the angst that you are experiencing from having to process this lawsuit. And someone else said that much of the money was reimbursed. And if that is a fact,
it was reimbursed.
Let me finish I'm sorry. If that is the fact, it feels punishing to me for us all to have to pay for our water. It feels like punishment if you were reimbursed, and I know you're going to respond to that.
We were reimbursed by the DEP, right? And so that money comes out of the money that was going to be paying for the free water, right? There's a fixed pool of money, right, that the DEP is putting towards this project. And a lot of, money was spent on a lawsuit, on, I don't know, many lawsuits. And so, yes, the town was reimbursed by the DEP, but that money came out of this project cost. So it's not punitive. It's just like the money's gone. It went to the lawyers instead of you.
Got it. Still stinks.
Does.
Thank you. That's my last.
Amy?
I'm Amy Donnelly, 1 Locust Lane. A couple of quick questions. Has anybody tested the radon level around the well pump, the pump house?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we can find out. My guess is, it's a couple 100 feet of clay. And I don't think there's a lot of like hard rock there, but Otto or Gary may know better than me.
Radon can also be trapped in clay.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know but we can find out if they tested for radon.
Okay, and can you also find out how often they plan to test for it? Because obviously the aquifer will be shifting somewhat as water is withdrawn. So could that be posted on the town's website?
Yeah, we can find out if they're going to be doing radon tests. I'm not sure if that was ever part of the scope or if that's normally tested for wells, but we can find out.
It should be normally tested for wells, and it's something I have been asking about since 2015. So I'm going to keep on asking about it, Neil.
If it's tested, it will be tested, and everyone in the district will get a letter, I think at least once a year, of all of the test results mailed to you.
Okay.
Not more than once a year, I think. Right? Is that right, Gary?
I believe that's the frequency that comes out, yes. The testing is obviously more often to maintain status with the health department, but I think the notification is an annual notification to residents, yes.
Okay, and that also includes, the letter will also include lead and arsenic levels, stuff like that?
Yes, the annual letter.
Yes.
Thank you. And is it Koch Plumbing that's doing the plumbing inside our houses?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so my plan was to, if the water is coming in this fall, as you say, that's past the time that people usually need to use their hoses outside. My plan was to wait until spring. The connection will be made from the new water supply to my plumbing. And the other plumbing disconnected, but then can I reconnect the other plumbing in a safe manner next spring in order to get a couple of hose bibs functional?
Yes, Ms. Donnelly, you can reconnect the hose bibs to your well at any point, after the water is installed. Again, the key to it is that it can't be connected into the system that's coming from the town, but there's no urgency to, switch over your hose bibs at any point. You could go through the winter and then have it done in the springtime and just have them isolated and reattached to your well system.
Great, thank you. And you were very helpful, Otto, with all your explanations when you came to my house. So that was wonderful. Thank you. One other thing that I've already mentioned to a few people here, whether solar panels or regular electric supply is used at the pump house, I'd like to see a motion activated light on there so that it's not constantly shining. Even a small light, every little bit adds to the neighborhood. As you know, I'm a stargazer. I'm the queen of outer space, so I want my dark skies. Could you do that? Can you make the light that you're gonna need on the well house motion activated?
We are already looking into that.
Thank you.
I would like to second that, Amy, because I'm right across the street. There is nothing I would like more than what you just said. Well, there are a lot of things, but
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I did know that again. Thank you, Amy. Yes.
Kim and
Yes,
I are right across the street.
community over there.
We're going to
Thank
be
you.
knocking out the bulbs.
Yeah, you hear that?
Just saying.
I think it's just a matter of switching a permanent bulb for a motion sensor bulb. It shouldn't be something that requires a lot of engineering. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Barbara's iPad. I think you're here. Are you here?
Need to unmute themselves. He's talking, but you can't hear him. He's muted.
Okay,
Can you hear me now as this
Yes,
commercial
yes.
goes? Thank you. So my name is Roy Speedling, and I live at 15 Woodland Drive. And I'm one of those people whose pump for the reservoir of the well is in the interior of the house. So when this abandonment happens, or when the cutoff happens, I imagine that there's going to be some water that is going to leak out from that reservoir. I have this big, 5-gallon thing where water comes in and it goes to the rest of the house. I hear it every time the water goes on. I don't know if anybody else has that. So I'm just wondering, are there any kinds of mitigations that are going to be done in regards to that happening? Because when that happens, all this water is going to be, in that tank and probably going all over my finished basement. Are you getting the point there? I hope.
Yes, and that is part of the plumber's responsibility to make sure that I think you'll see that probably one of the first things they're going to do is shut the breaker off to the pump, whether it's inside or outside, and then they'll have to drain or collect any water that is released when they make that connection and cut that pipe to tie in the other one. Yes.
And then I am responsible for getting rid of that tank that's filled with water that probably weighs, I don't know, 100 pounds? Or is that something that will be taken care of by the plumber? Is that something I have to negotiate?
The connection is made between the new service and the piping in the house, just beyond that tank.
Oh, good.
Okay.
So they'll take care of the tank, I'm guessing then.
No.
Oh,
There-
no.
Because that would be part of whether you wanted to keep that pump and that tank
Homeowners.
outside faucets or something else. So that would be something that would still be yours, but they will sever the connection as it comes out of that tank. And that's where they would make the connection to the rest of the house piping.
So getting that tank that has all that water in it out is going to be my responsibility. I guess I can try to drain it first. I'm not sure, but maybe somebody will help me and my other neighbors out on that.
They don't have to drain that, right, Gary? Because
Typically, the operation is to drain, so it's light enough to move. Yes.
Okay. My other question was in regards to something you said already that I wasn't able to ascertain. The well houses are going to be constructed now on the former Roars property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is there a name now for that road that goes down to the well? Did I miss that? To the new well?
I think it's
Brickner
currently
Lane.
called Brickner Lane.
Brickner Lane, yes,
On
that is correct.
Parcel Viewer.
Oh, it's currently named, but I don't remember seeing that sign. Okay, and you said that particular road that is going down all the way almost to the river, I guess, is not going to be paved, correct?
God, no, I hope not. We have no
Okay.
plans to pave it, right, Gary?
Not as part of the project, no.
So we'll have like a permeable kind of top, so the water.
I think it's gonna stay exactly the same unless it was damaged during
Got it.
construction, when we'll fix it, but there's no plans to change it at all.
All right, that's good for me. Thank you very much.
Donna Liebman?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much to everybody for all of your questions. I appreciate that. I'd like to go back to a couple of things that were said earlier. My first question has to do with well abandonment and the associated costs. I think you said, Neil, that you were going to find out about that, about whether or not
Yes.
something had to, okay. And where do you get that information? Like, where do you go to get the answers to those questions?
Well, I mean, I just found out about this tonight. I would imagine I'll start with the Ulster County Department of Health to find out what's required. And then I will ask the DEP whether that is included in this. And if not, if they'd be willing to include it. And if we have enough money to be able to do that. I mean, the goal is to have this not cost anyone anything and for people to have clean water. And so, you know, if there's money if there's money left over, you know, my goal is to spend every single penny, and whatever's left over, we can put towards keeping people's water rates as low or free as possible for as long as we can. I mean, we don't want to leave any money on the table.
Right. No, I appreciate that sentiment. For me personally, I also learned about this, the whole idea of abandoning the well and the associated costs. This is the first time I've ever heard of that. In my simple mind, I thought, okay, you switch from one source to the other, you turn it off, the well stays there, no biggie. I guess that's not correct.
I'm in the same boat. I heard about it today. I'd be surprised if that was a cost being put on people, which is why I'm going to ask about it. If it wasn't included, I'd be kind of annoyed.
Okay, well, the gentleman who raised the question earlier about the abandonment of the wells, now I don't know how much accurate information he had, but he did indicate that he thought it could be very costly to remove the pump and all that. And so I think it's really necessary to get that information as soon as possible, because if we're in the position of meeting with Otto and Art, who I met with today, and they were wonderful and very informative and cooperative and all that. I already had my meeting. I didn't know about the costs associated, and I spoke to my own plumber about saving the well for hoses, and the cost that he projected sounded pretty small compared to what the cost of abandoning a well might be. So my point is, we need that information in order to make an informed decision.
I'm gonna call the DOH tomorrow as soon as I can. And they're there.
I appreciate that.
I'll
I appreciate that. Okay, the other, oh, and also I was very happy to hear you state that we're supposed to get carbon filters if we ask for them. And I remember that as being part of one point in time when that became part of our, I don't know, settlement or negotiations or whatever you want to call it. However, when I met with Art and Otto today, Art was not aware of that we could get a carbon filter if we asked for it. And so I'm just, this is not a statement against Art. He was wonderful. Otto knew, he was, yes, carbon filters are to be made available. I just think it probably would be a good idea for the guy who's in charge of doing the construction to know about the carbon filters if a homeowner wants one.
Checklist for everyone and make sure that everyone is aware of the questions they
okay. And I'm sorry, go ahead. And when would the carbon filter be installed? Like at the point of hookup, how does that work?
That's my guess, right?
Yeah.
The point of hookup.
Hi, Ms. Lehman, it's Otto.
Hi, yeah.
Yes, that would be.
Otto there.
Comes and does the hookup. And, I know Art was unaware of that, but his company is aware of it. And
I'm going off camera.
Because they have submitted a submittal to me for that type of filter. So they're aware of it. It was just a misunderstanding from Art.
Okay, no, I meant no reflection on Art at all.
I understand.
It was noteworthy to me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And my last question has to do with the billing. In some municipalities, from what I understand, there's a minimum water bill that's charged. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, there is a minimum bill. When I look across all of the districts, like I said, we don't know what the final bill is going to be, but there's usually a minimum bill of, I think it's like, it's the same, right? So it's like 1/10 of 1 cent for like the first 1,200 gallons per month. So it would be $12. Your minimum bill would be $12 a month, right? But that's less than what the average person uses. So, but if you were going away for 2 months and you use no water, or go away for a month and you use no water, you would still get a bill for $12, right? But that minimum is it's the same price per gallon that you pay later on, unless you're like a really big user, and then it usually ramps up. If you're like I know in the village, SUNY gets counted as one user, so they pay a higher rate per gallon. And that's just to kind of get people to use less. But those higher rates don't kick in until you start using a lot of water.
Okay. And my last question, and I beg the indulgence of people who retain more information than I do. excuse me, I was a little confused early on in your initial presentation, Neil, when you were explaining the relationship between with how the village is overseeing or supervising the water district. I'm not sure if I'm using the right words. Would you mind explaining that again?
So the way it is right now, it's the town does the day-to-day operations of the district. Gary mentioned that they're working on some like electronic connections because they need to have communication between this district and the village's water district for when they're using the water. But the town is in charge of the day-to-day operations of the district. The village has agreed, when we put this whole project together, they agreed to take on the maintenance of like the main water lines and everything else, because this is, you know, their backup system. So, you know, when if like a water main breaks, it's unlikely to happen in a new district, but in, you know, 50 years from now, when the pipes are old and they break, the village is responsible for coming in and fixing that, and not the local residents having to pay.
Okay. Okay.
It's that they've agreed to take on, like they don't, like in another town water district, say up in Cherry Hill, if a water pipe breaks, then the highway superintendent, they go out there and they fix it and things like that. And it's the town that pays for it. But the village has agreed to take on that cost because it's their backup water source.
Right. So you're sharing, basically the town and village are sharing responsibilities.
Yeah, the town runs the day-to-day operations.
Okay.
Because it's a town water district, and there are very strict laws in place for the state for what, you know, we can't take money out of the district as a town. Like the district is its own independent entity. That, you know, the town can't say, oh, we need some more money. Oh, let's take it out of the district's fund that they have. That's not allowed. That money stays in the district.
Right. Okay.
It's totally like separate, and it gets audited and everything else. And it's so that, you know, towns and villages aren't taking money out of, you know, the people who've paid for it.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. That's all for me. Thanks.
Carol Cryer.
Hello again. I have 3 questions. My first question relates to hydrologist Paul Rubin's report, where he stated there were high levels of manganese in the water coming from the well on Plains Road, and I'd like to know how that's being addressed.
That I'm not sure if he was referring to the samples that were taken by Chazen, but we can look into that.
Okay. Okay.
If there are high levels, I mean, there's nothing that's not allowed by Department of Health, right? Everything is going to has to meet the requirements that are allowed.
Okay. My second question relates to, I've spoken to some of my neighbors in the neighborhood who are considering opting out of the water district. And I wanted to know if that's still an option. And if so, what is the deadline for that? And also, what is the process involved in opting out?
Well, you can opt out of connecting.
Mm-hmm.
So it means that you can keep your own well, but everyone is in the district, right? And so whether you get connected or not, you cannot opt out of the district because you may decide to move, or you may sell your house, and the next person, they may want to connect to the district.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would happen then is they would have to pay a different rate, and it doesn't really work. We want to make sure that everyone has the ability to opt in or to connect at any time. Whether you opt in or not, everyone's in the district once the district was formed. If you decide not to connect, everyone has that choice.
Mm-hmm.
But just be forewarned that when you decide to connect, you then have to pay to have that connection from the curb cut all the way to your house, and pay to have the meter installed and all of the plumbing work.
I know initially we were promised that if you opted out, the line from the main to your house would be paid for, but it would be capped off at your house. And then you would be responsible for having it hooked up within your house. That would be at your own expense. So you're saying now that the line from the main line to your house will no longer be covered if you opt out?
Because what if in the middle of the night, you don't install a meter and you just connect that water line right to your house and you're then stealing water?
Well, you're not, because it's capped off at the house. That
You could
was
uncap
the
it
way
at
it's
any
supposed
time.
to be set up. It's supposed to be
But-
capped off at the house.
You could uncap it at any time and then be stealing water. Or that line could say it broke in the yard and then that water was just running out of the district and it was costing all of your neighbors lots of money to pay for water that was leaking into the yard. So the standard practice is that the curb cuts are done and they're shut off, and that's the only way to ensure that there's no leakage or water leaking out or leaking into the other people's wells to keep them safe.
Okay, so therefore the option of opting out with the line running from the main to your house is no longer open to a resident.
It may have been mentioned, but that's not, now that we're further along in the process, I've been told that's not the standard practice.
Because that was something that was promised by DEP in the beginning. All right, my last question is, I don't feel that 2 years of free water is fair compensation for Plains Road community residents who are sacrificing their wells for the benefit of the community at large. I really don't think that that's fair, even if it only amounts to, I'm sorry, I've lost my place here on my notes. Because originally there was talk about a 3-year, a 5-year, a 7-year, it went to 10 years. At one point I brought up with Susan Zimmett that I thought that the fair approach to this would be that there would be free water to the residents of Plains Road up until there was a change in ownership of the property. And that didn't go anywhere. I mean, she discussed it with Jeff Logan and it went to the attorney for discussion and it never went beyond that. There was never any final decision on that. But I'm just stating my own opinion in that I don't think that 2 years of free water is fair for what the Plains Road residents are sacrificing. And that's my last comment for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jason.
Greetings, and thank you all for taking the time to talk this through. And Neil and everybody's questions, I got answers to most of my questions from the answers that were already given. I guess I just wanted to underscore one thing, which is the kind of the contentious nature of this whole process and the division that's been sown on the road and with the town government. And I feel like it's an opportunity to just sort of sit back and recognize that everybody has a valid point of view. And the people who, it wasn't just one person who brought the lawsuit. It was a group of people, and there was a contingent behind them that had real concerns. And I think many of those were people whose wells were affected by the testing and got scared because water is an important resource. And a larger issue of having the sort of the balance of independence and collectivism that we're all facing. And of course, the people whose wells didn't work in the first place have our concerns. And so I just feel like it's important to sort of reach across the aisle, as it were, and understand one another's point of view and kind of let the past be water under the bridge. Let's see, a question about the choice to hook up or not to hook up. In the event that we choose to hook up to the district, and for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. And, I don't know what those reasons may be. It could be that the district fails, or that there are issues, or there's just personal reasons why we would want to depart from the district. Or obviously we can't depart from the district because we're all part of the district, but we would want to unhook. Is that an option?
I never thought about that, but we will ask about that as well. It's a really good question. Thank you.
Okay, so the answer to that will be somehow forthcoming.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask the people who know. Like, I'll ask the attorney or the Department of Health if things like that are allowed.
Okay, great. The other question is about the meters themselves. There's been a lot of controversy about what are known as smart meters and the radiation that they emit, particularly concerns about them being, inside or very close to people's homes, close to children. There's a lot of sort of dirty EMF radiation that comes off of those smart meters, and I'm familiar with them in connection with the electrical grid, but I'm wondering if the meters that will be used are those smart meters that are kind of broadband connected and emit EMFs.
These are not, they're not like the electrical meters. Those electrical meters have much more power, but these probably have a battery the size of like an old watch battery, like this little tiny one that you wear on your wrist, like the like I don't know, I can't even, like, they're tiny batteries and they last like 5 years. There's less of a charge in that than they're not the same as the electrical meters that are really smart. Yes, they are. They can be read remotely, but they're not like the old meters with just like a number that flips around. So they're smarter than that, but these aren't like those old meters. There is no electromagnetic radiation that's coming out of them.
Got it. Perhaps you could you just share the information about those meters as well? Whatever the model and the brand, so we can just have the opportunity to do our own research.
Sure.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for all this information. And I would underscore also and support the value of extra communication. Like a lot of whatever conflict and distress can be avoided if there's sort of preemptive communication, and using the website to just load up with information about questions that people may have. But thank you, Neil, and everybody.
Thank you. Ingrid, there.
So thanks. Neil, so maybe this is something that we could look up a little bit further, because I know everybody's expressing concern about this. There seems to have been, aside from lawsuit, pledges made of money by the town, and I do have it in writing about subsidized period of up to 6 years as an eligible expense in the intergovernmental agreement between the town and the DEP, $125,000 in funding approved by the DEP. So I don't believe, and I mean, we can look it up and discuss it and get back to everybody, but this may be something that cannot be taken from residents. So we can certainly look further.
That's still in the intergovernmental agreement, and I kind of alluded to that, right? It depends on, in the end, like what are, like, there's a finite amount of money that the DEP is putting onto this project, right? And that's part of that pool of money. And so if they allow, for example, if the wells, decommissioning the wells was not in the original one, but then we ask that it's in there, like that comes out of that pool of money, right? If it was in there, then it doesn't come out of that pool of money, right? It all depends. Like there's like $10 million that's allocated to this. Part of that is there's money in there to help pay for bills for the first couple of years. Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it really depends on how much it costs us to run the district. That's what we're trying to figure out right now because costs have gone up, in the last, 6 years, labor, chlorine, electricity, everything costs more. So what we talked about 6 years ago as, a certain amount of money, like that money is still the same, but things cost more. So yes, there is some free water that is an allowable expense in this, but we don't know how many years that's going to be, right? That's what we're working on. But it really depends, like, in the end, what did it cost to make all of this, right? There's only so much money in this project. The DEP isn't going to come back and say, oh, here's another, $500,000 because, electricity costs more now. So yes, there is still, like, the plan has always been that there's free money, but it really depends on how much things cost. So, like, and we're trying to do this for as cheap as we can, so we have as much money left over so we can give that to people.
Okay, thanks.
Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Capobianco. I'm on 3 Locust Lane. I had a few concerns. Some were already addressed by some people. I do know that prior to the lawsuit, the last meeting I had gone to for the district, and this is going back, but the understanding I had at that time, and I have talked to other people on the road who seem to agree, was there was an incentive at that time to not join a lawsuit. So they were giving us incentives, one being that they would do the hookup for us to the outside for our wells. And I seem to remember at one point them talking about 25 years of free water. I hear what you're saying at this point about your budget, but I have a lot of concerns, particularly tonight when you mentioned at some point, it seems like it's a bit of a loophole to say at some point, perhaps you're going to add in another single user. And later on, you talked about SUNY would be considered a single user.
Not in this district. Not, that's.
Well, you said you might have to add an extra user at some point that would have a excessive amount of water need. And I'm really not totally sure.
Would like to use the water, not SUNY.
If who would like to use the water?
The village.
The village, but these are, I don't think there's actually a real option to opt out in my mind, because from what I've heard tonight, you can't have the pipe put in and it has, and because they could undo the cap and somehow take water. So that has to be paid for. Then you have to pay for the part to your house. And it just seems that our water tables, a lot of us had a water table that dropped. So we really don't know what will happen when there's a large use unless we base it on what happened in the past. It took a very long time for those wells to come back again. So in a way, it's a big risk not to opt in because we may not have well water at all. So we're kind of giving up our wells no matter what. I don't really understand the whole abandonment piece, but I do know that we bought our house with the understanding there was a well because we have larger properties than they have in town. And we wanted to be able to have a garden and clean our car in the driveway and all those things that take up a lot more water than the average user in town because our properties are larger. So I'm just not really, I would like to see, I suppose, is that there wasn't some sort of loophole that right now there's an ordinance that says that or I'm not sure what the technical term is, that our water is only used for our district and for these emergencies. But I don't want to have it that at one point the village can then start tapping into the water, because then we definitely won't have any wells left.
Well, I mean, I think if you had problems during the well testing, I'm not an expert on this, but I think if your well had problems during the well testing, you will have problems during the planned and emergency shutdowns.
Yes, I understand that. And what I'm saying is,
That's why the district is being paid for by the DEP, so that you don't have, you're not suddenly without water during shutdowns. And so
But-
if you don't, if you
well,
have.
we wouldn't have had any shutdowns had the project not gone through. In other words, like the problems are because the district is coming in. It's not because we had problems prior to that until they tested the water for a district. We have had well water for 20 something years and we still have well water, but our well dropped when they were deciding to put a district in and they tested the water, then it dropped the water. Some people had water tanks outside of their house for quite a long time. They had no water. So no matter whether you opt in or opt out, that's going to happen again when there is use for all of the water, and it doesn't just regenerate the next day. So what I'm saying is that you really can't opt out because you may not have a chance of having your well water at all.
But so some people didn't have issues before, but you've heard many of your neighbors say that they have hard water and they have UV systems. So 80% of the people in this water district had water that they had to treat somehow. And so it's that, and that was before any well testing was done. And so there are, and I guarantee you that not everyone in the district right now with a well is testing their water for E. coli every year and testing it for lead and arsenic every 3 to 5 years, right? So people don't know what their water quality is, but with this system, they will.
My thought is more to do with, I think, some of this, as Jason said, is water under the bridge. We're in it now. I'm just pointing out that I don't think there's an option for opting out. I just don't, in a way. I mean, you can, but I think it's going to be a problem down the line. And so it's kind of a misnomer. And the things that were promised to us were so that we would not have gone to court, and they're being presented as they were court incentives, which I don't think is totally true. The other parts I wanted to ask about what is, again, that loophole, or I call it a loophole, but I think there should be a guarantee to us that if this district, like it is being proposed to us, is only to be used for the people who have the wells, then why would they add other people in? I mean, the possibility is then we become a full-time water district. It's not just for the testing. It becomes something that it wasn't supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, I appreciate that point of view.
Okay. When they're saying 2 holes to come to the house, 2 little holes, like a hole at the wellhead and a hole at the house. So far, the few people on my street who have had their water put in seem to have tracks down the lawn. Are you saying there's another option besides that, where they've dug up like 2 big tracks down their whole lawn?
I don't know, Otto, have.
I don't think it was where they dug up. What it was the machine that they used to dig the hole closer to the foundation. Of course, they had to drive across the lawn to get it there, and it did press in. So what they did was they went and filled those in with topsoil, and they'll be seeding and mulching them. It was just the tracks from the machine.
The machine. What happens if you have, like I do, which is trees in the way and a walkway, or when they say things like the plantings will be replaced? How are they going to do that? If you have, I don't know, old plants that aren't going to regenerate very easily because they're being dug up, rose bushes or whatever, how is that going to be mitigated?
Well, I think when, of course, with the if they need to be hand dug out, that it's close proximity to the house, they'll take them out by hand and shovel. And again, they'll come out, and the process has been taking maybe 2 to 3 hours at the most on each home. So they'd be replanted right away. Of course, there's no real guarantee that something wouldn't, depending on the type of plant and stuff, but I think with the depth that they're taking them out and then being placed right back into the same area, I don't foresee any issues with that. And I know what we'll do is, when we can set up an appointment, you can give myself or Art a call there. We can come over, or myself, and come over and look at each home as, each individual residence is a different way that we approach it.
So you'll repair walkways and such, right? If you have.
Yes, anything that is, taken out, or I don't want to reuse the word damage, but I guess damage will be repaired to restored to as, and it's in the contract, as good as, if not better condition than what it was before the work took place.
Okay, thank you. My last question, and could someone please explain a little bit about the abandonment of the well issue? I didn't really quite follow why that's it's the logical option rather than using your well for outdoor use. This idea that we have to abandon the well. And again, I'm not sure why hookups for outdoor use or well abandonment falls on us as costs, since we're already giving up our well water.
Well, so, I mean, the first I heard about this issue of abandonment was today. And so I'm going to call tomorrow to find out what exactly is required and if it's required. And so the question was, well, when you disconnect your well, what do you have to do with it? Do you have to take the pump out, fill it in? What are the requirements? And then, who pays for that? And then the reason that you would have to connect it is, the only reason you would have is if you decide to keep your well. If you decide to just leave it exactly the way it is, you don't have to reconnect your well, your hoses to the water system. That's part of the project. But then you'd be paying for, a penny for every 10 gallons of water that you use. If you use the current rates that the other district users pay, or less than that, 5 cents for every 100 gallons, based on what the original estimates were.
But this is chlorinated water. So for outdoor use, the ideal for us, and also because we all have gardens and much more property to be watering, and we're used to being able to use as much water as we need, that you would want to use your well if there's water left for that. And that hookup was supposed to be originally part of the agreement. I'm not exactly sure why we paid for that. Why it wouldn't be part of
that. If that was promised, it was before I was involved, and I have not seen that agreement. So I can ask, but what previous board members and previous supervisors said at board meetings, I can't promise anything with that. I can look into it and find out what the Department of Health requires. And that's all I can really promise. And if it is required, I can ask if the DEP would be willing to cover it, and if there's enough money in the budget to cover it.
That would be great, because at this point, again, we're giving up our wells, and it would be nice to know that we still can use the water for our plants. All right, thank you.
Denise and Vincent.
Hi, yes, Vince Fariano here, H. Shangum View. Just a couple of things. Earlier, someone, I think Carol, asked about underground electric and cable. And a joke was made about that. And I just want to say that it's not a laughing matter, because that's exactly what happened at my house. Those cables were broken. I had Central Hudson here for 8 hours. I had Spectrum here 4 times to get my internet hooked back up. So if you do indeed have underground cables, be very careful. Central Hudson's marking system does not go onto private property. I know that Otto is looking into that for me for when they do indeed do the final drilling, because indeed, if they hit it on the road where it was marked, I'm very concerned about when they do come and do the final hookup. So it's something to be, it's a pleasure to have underground wires and not have them, flooding through my yard. But if you do have them, just be aware that it's a significant issue. And the other thing I would just like to say, because I know this meeting is going much longer than expected, we do have the website. Information has always been very scarce in the 7 years this has been going on. There's old information, there's new information, there's changing information. We do have a website. Let's post I would suggest, I would recommend, I would hope that we would post all the answers to the questions that you are so kindly researching for us, and maybe summarize some of the costs, that, personally, it's kind of in one ear and out the other. Well, this is 1/10 of a cent, that's a 500th of a cent. That'd be awesome. Post that information about the village expressing interest in down the road of purchasing water out of this district, for what purpose and what they might be doing with that, selling it for a profit, who knows. Likewise, the warranty information that you mentioned, very great information. It's awesome that it's there, that we do have some protection. But, again, we all took notes, and those notes end up under somewhere. It'd be great. Whether the expansion tanks that are required for wells will be taken out by the plumber when they do hook it up, because you don't need an expansion tank. And, yes, if we do have our own plumbing systems, our own UV systems, or hardening or sulfur removal, just who's responsible for paying for that? If that kind of stuff is written down, it really is going to help all of us. So thank you for anything you can do in that direction. Thanks.
Sure.
Vincent, I'm sorry if that sounded out of place. I have been managing underground utilities as a private portion of Chazen since 1984. And it is not a joking matter. It was very quickly just to lighten the mood a little bit, but I thoroughly understand that, and we take that to heart. So I'm very sorry.
Yeah, it was a very dangerous situation, because they didn't just cut the electric line. They nicked it, and it kind of sat there doing whatever electric lines do underground until it browned out, and eventually did some damage in my house. And when the Central Hudson dug it up, the water that was in that hole was boiling. So it really was, somebody could have been killed.
Oh, you don't want to need anything from Central Hudson or Spectrum. We built the new courthouse in PD during COVID. The biggest problems we had were Central Hudson and Spectrum. Like, COVID was nothing compared to dealing with those two companies. They slowed us down more than COVID did. Anything we do to avoid a problem with them, believe me.
Central Hudson was fantastic here. They came out within an hour. They found the problem. They had numerous people there. They got us up as quick as possible. But yes, I certainly, from what I experienced with Spectrum, I can imagine if you needed them and they didn't need you, yes. Crazy.
We had to delay the project for months because they couldn't come up. But whatever, it's another story. But Arlene, any more questions? And Arlene, go ahead, please.
I mean, it basically, Vinny just said it, but I guess because you keep saying, you're going to look into stuff. And so I'm going to look into stuff and I'm going to post it on the website. Like, where will we know the answers?
Well, post the answers to all these questions on the website. We can also email them to everyone. And we'll go back and we'll compile these documents and, the IMAs we have with the village, and if we're allowed to, Gary, can we put the contracts up on the website? I imagine they're public information. And so if people want to see everything, it's all there.
Okay.
Gail?
Yeah, I have one final, it's really a logistical question. I don't know if you know the answer yet, but is it at the very end, is like there's going to be a switch flipped and suddenly everybody's going to be on municipal water, or is it going to be done a few houses at a time? Or how does that system suddenly become operational once all the pieces have been put in place?
With the process that the contractor is looking to put forth and have the pipe extended into the house ready for a hookup, as soon as the well field and the water treatment building are on site and all the piping and so on is approved, that will be the point at which the contractor's plumber can then start scheduling to come in, and having minimized the amount of work that's in the houses, he'll be able to do multiple of those hookups in a day. So it will be a domino effect again, just like the install from the road to the house is now, that they'll schedule those. And like I say, they can probably do 4 or 6 of those a day. So it won't be everybody's online, but it will be a concerted effort that now the water's available, everything's approved, it's DOH approved, the system is up and running. So as quickly as they can, they'll come through and make those.
So houses will come online sequentially, not all at the same time.
That's correct. Yep.
Because don't you have to do actual testing with water running through the system into everybody's house?
There doesn't have to be testing with water running into everybody's house. All the lines would be tested prior to that. So it's already been tested, chlorinated to the point where it's ready for the hookup. And it's just that cutover and the attachment to your house piping, the internal piping.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And just to, I think I do understand this, but just to be 100% clear, we definitely were told originally that forgive me if my terms are wrong, that the piping could be run to the house prior to the actual connection being made. And then the choice would be there to opt in or opt out of participation. But now what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is that's not the case. That if you have the piping run in from the connection at the road to your house, you have by definition opted in. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. I think if maybe those comments were promised before, maybe it was without understanding of how the Department of Health works and how the districts work. But, that's, I think that the standard practice is you don't want to have lines running into people's houses because there's no way to know what they do, when no one's there.
Well, that was something that Clauser and Chazen put forth, for what it's worth, for many years, just so you know. Just so you know. I mean, I agree with what Karen said about it's probably risky in the extreme for people to opt out, but just so you know that sequence of events this is the first time we've heard something differently on that, just so you know.
I will ask for clarification on that point to be sure that that I understand it right.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Any other questions?
I do. I have a question. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. William Kranz has one too, but.
Shall I go?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. I have several questions. Most of them have been answered. Thank you. I just want to reiterate about the questions and answers that have been given tonight. There's obviously a transcript of this. I believe you're recording. So to have that on the website with details would be so helpful. So we have about 30 people on here now. We have over 100 people in the district. And if one person's asking that question, you can just guarantee 20 people are asking that question. So I think it's really important to get those questions and answers on the website. And Neil, you mentioned putting it out in an email. That's great as well. I also want to mention for the DEP, and you've mentioned over and over again that there is a budget. There's a budget and we're going to work within that budget. Can you ask to increase that budget due to inflation, COVID expenses over the last few years? Can there be something, a mechanism or something to start asking to increase that budget?
We've asked, they said no.
Well, ask again.
I'll ask again.
Okay.
No.
We actually are managing another district over in Wawarsing, and it's a vastly larger district than this, and we've been told the same thing there.
Okay, so we'll come back to that another time. So I want to, and I believe these questions have been answered. Two things. So the question of abandoning the well. So we're happy to connect to the district, but we'd also like to continue using our existing well. What's that about? Can we still use our existing well?
Yes, and that's the point that we made about you could either negotiate with the contractor's plumber to have them rehook your outside faucets to that existing well and pressure tank, so that they would be the only things that existing individual well would feed.
Okay, and that would be on us to pay for that.
Yes, that's not part of the reconnect to the municipal district. Yeah.
Okay, and we also have a whole house water filter from Hudson Valley Water Solutions that filters, because we're not interested in the so how does that, is that the same mechanism? So we connect that to our whole house filter so we don't get the chlorination?
That, I think, as was mentioned, it can stay in place. It would be similar to any other filtering or UV system you have in place. You could leave that if there were softener. You could leave that if that's what you wanted to, but that would be downstream from the connection where they would sever the well coming in and the municipal water coming in. So it would be severed at that point. Anything you have further into the house from there could either be left or severed at your choice.
Okay, and we received something in the mail today about having a meeting. Is this when we discuss all this? Somebody?
That's probably the flyer from.
It was a flyer. Yeah, it was a
Yes.
flyer. I looked at it quickly. It was a flyer about,
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so that's when we set up the meeting. Joe, it's okay. We don't have to look at it.
Correct.
Let me see my notes here. That's all. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks. Amy?
I just want to mention that when this was going very hot and heavy in 2014, I believe, maybe 2015, I inquired about the possibility of having municipal water for everything except my hoses. And I was told at that time by representatives of the DEC, not the DEP, where to look. The Board of Health has a website that describes how you have to do this hookup. It was perfectly readable to me. I'm not an engineer. So I had expected for the last 7 or 8 years that this is something I would have to do to have, if I wanted to use water for an outdoor source, that I would have to have a separate entrance into the house for the municipal water so that it couldn't be disconnected. It couldn't be contaminated by the possibility of getting bad water from my well. And I'd just like all of my neighbors to notice that if your well is contaminated with E. coli, or it has pesticides in it, or whatever. A dead raccoon is in the well, and it's connected or can be connected back to the municipal water supply, you are contaminating everybody's water supply. Don't do it. This shouldn't be news to people. I do remember looking at this a long time ago. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, Amy, and that's the reason for when they penetrate the house with the new line from the municipal system, that would be a separate penetration from your well. And that would be what would then later be connected into the house piping, which would then sever the line that comes in from the well, goes to the pressure tank, and then would be connecting to the house. So at that point, that's where that cross connection would be severed, so that anything from that point on, you could then plumb from that pressure tank and backfeed or outside faucet, but there would be no connection between the two systems. You would have two different penetrations. One would be completely for outside use, and it would not ever be tied into the municipal system. So there's no chance that that can backfeed into the system.
I'm just pointing out to my neighbors that this is
Oh, you're
not
right.
this is not being done out of malice. There's a
No,
very
no, you're
important
exactly
reason
right.
for it.
Yep, you're exactly right.
Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, I appreciate everyone coming up and yes, William. Go ahead, please.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Run a line from the main into my house and I don't make a hookup. You're concerned about possibly somebody stealing the water or something. But isn't that water controlled by the valve out by the road?
But there's no way to know that if you don't turn that you could go turn that valve on when no one's looking in the middle of the night.
Don't I have to have a special key to turn that on?
No, not really.
Also, will those valves be cut off, the ones that are sitting up above the ground eventually?
Yes. Right now, at this point, we've got them raised up above the
Right.
by a foot or a foot and a half or so, with a stake there with a blue ribbon on it. We left them up a little bit higher right now,
Right.
so that we know where they.
You don't hook up, will they still be cut off?
And what they actually do is they slide up and down. The top
Okay.
don't slide, so that can get pushed right down. The top, the round section there, with the cap, can be right at ground level.
Okay, I was just concerned about a snowplow hitting out when I plow my driveway. Thank you.
Karen?
All right, just a quick thought, and I'm not sure this is accurate, but Jason was asking if you already hook up and at a later date you decide you want to unhook. Wouldn't it seem that that's not actually a possibility? Because they're saying if somebody decides not to hook up, there's a chance that they may, on the middle of the night, go out and steal water, which I doubt anyone's going to do. But wouldn't opting to unhook up run into the same issue?
Yeah, but I don't know that for sure. So that's why I said I would find out.
Oh, I would think that if it's a turn on, turn off situation. If the pipe's there, you're saying you're hooked up. So if they're not going to pull the pipe out, right?
No, but they may not let you unhook up, but I don't know the answer for that.
Oh, you may not be able to unhook up.
And I don't know
Okay.
the answer, which is why I said I would try to find that
I
out.
misunderstood. I thought that you said that you can unhook up at some point, and I just wanted to make
No, I
sure.
said I would find out if you
Okay.
can or can't.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.
Carol Cryer.
Okay, this is my last question. To avoid people who have decided to opt out of the system and paid to have the line run from the road to their house, could not a meter be installed at that connection point that would monitor whether or not they were stealing the water?
Like I said, I don't know the details. I'll ask if that's allowed or not.
But that may be a way to prevent people from stealing the water if they do make the decision to opt out. That's all I have to say. I'm ready to say good night. Thank you so much, Neil.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I don't know the answer, so I'll ask.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
It was very informative.
Thank you, everyone.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Yeah, please.
I hope you can hear me. I have a very bad connection. So the pipe is run to the house, and then a plumber connects it to the internal system of the house. But then, couldn't a homeowner choose to like cap off that system? Like the meter is on the system, but the homeowner could then just choose to use their existing well connected to their own system and just shut off the valve or cap off the municipal water within the house. Would that be illegal? I mean, that's something that a plumber could do, and it's something that one would think a homeowner could do by choice.
Any of those things are possible, Jason. And I think the comment a little bit earlier was a very valid comment by Amy that any of those types of things that are done at that point, yes, are illegal because you just connected a private system into a public system, and they are illegal and they're jeopardizing not only yourself, your neighbors. Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's regulated probably by the Department of Health.
I mean, isn't
Sorry, Jason, I think you're breaking up a little bit.
Is there a way to just shut off the valve?
I don't think, I'm from what I heard, there was a way to shut the valve.
It's not.
So you're breaking up a little bit, but it sounds like you're asking if there was a way to shut off the valve. I don't think that would be allowed by the Department of Health, because in theory, you could then open and close that valve at will. That would put everyone, it's illegal, right? So the system would have to be cut. The pipe would have to be cut, and then you would have to probably reapply to the Department of Health for using your well. That's my guess. I don't know the details on this. We can ask, what the procedure would be or if it's allowed. But I don't know the answer on that, which is why I said I'd ask the Department of Health how that works. But there are, like, as Gary said, there are rules about connecting public and private water supplies. Any more questions or comments? If not, last call.
Good job, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Otto. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good
Nice
evening.
job. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.